Hey, 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 or should I say, all right, all right, all right. You loyal listeners reach out to me and say, Jason, back in the day, you used to say, all right, all right, all right. They say it used to remind them of Matthew McConaughey. Whew, that's one of the biggest compliments I think Jason Cass can get. Well, probably there's bigger but I think that that's a good one. Anyways, welcome to Agents Influence Podcast Conversations with who? Me, Jason Cass, and today I have Dustyne Bryant on. And you may know of her, you may not. I really don't know a ton about her. We've never talked before today. I've just had to chase her around on LinkedIn. The next step was to fly to where she was, get on bended knee and not propose, just say, would you join me as a guest? And so today, loyal listeners, we are lucky to get her. So please welcome to the podcast, Dustyne. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Jason.
I'm excited about this. I like people who like to teach other people about insurance. Walmart said one time, they said, people say that that we have nice people. And Sam Walton is quoted as saying, we don't, oh God, I just butchered it. He said, we don't train our people to be nice. We just hire nice people. Excuse me, loyal listeners. I promise I'll be more in line as we go. But it's interesting. Now, why do I say that? Dustyne, the reason I say that, and we'll get into more about this, is that if you think about it, that's how insurance is. We're looking for those nice people because we can train them on insurance. Right? I think there's a big misconception out there that we need to, and I've been guilty of it too. I need someone experienced. I should go steal somebody. Right? That's what we think to ourselves. And so,
Right.
I love the fact that you're involved in the process of trying to better agents, and we're going to talk more about that. Okay.
Got it.
All right. This is going to be a great conversation. So, are you ready for this to continue?
Let's go.
First question: are you an iPhone or are you a Droid user?
iPhone.
iPhone.
I used to be a Windows user. Have you ever used
Oh,
the Windows phones? I was solid on the Windows operating system, but unfortunately it just didn't catch on. So I had to give it up for an iPhone.
a lot of us know what that is. Now, some of our younger listeners right now are like, oh my God, iPhone had a phone. Or no, and I mean, Windows had a phone, but yeah, they
They
did. They
did, and it
did.
was huge. I
It was
loved
big.
the really big one. I think I still have it in a drawer somewhere. How many phones do you have from your past stuffed in a
And
drawer somewhere?
somebody's going to make a business out of that if they already have, because reason we keep them is because like there might be pictures on there. That's why my wife keeps them. She's like, I don't know what's on there. And I said, and we think to ourselves, because the format they're in or whatever may not be able to get them off, but somebody's going to come out with something one day that it's going to be, this device gets all your pictures off of your phones. And so all
Right.
these memories we will be able to find that we didn't have. So
Man,
yeah.
I loved the way that phone took pictures. I wish I would have known you were going to ask that question. I would have brought that honking piece of metal into this situation and shot because it would probably take up the height of my head. It
It
was
was.
big.
Yeah, it was big. It was. I totally forgot about that actually. Um, do you love to win or do you hate to lose, Dustyne?
Oh my gosh. I actually love both and find value in both. Of course, I love to win, but when
Right.
I lose, I learn really valuable lessons. So I kind of take both in stride.
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that answer. There's only three possible. Either answering one of those or going down the middle. And I think it's a fair assessment. I really think it is. Because at the bottom of that question, they're tied together. Right. But there are some people who are livid. They're like, dude, I'm here to win. Right. And then I hate
Right.
to
Well,
lose. I can't get over it. I get over losses quick. Do you?
sure. Now, I definitely internalize it at first. It's taken me a while to really get to the point that I can learn from the loss. I used to just
Mhm.
get really upset. Even a small account, if I would lose it or somebody would leave the agency that we were in, I would try to figure out, what I did to contribute to that. But then you just
Analyzing.
kind of have to, yeah. So it took me a while to get to the point where I could learn the lesson of what could I do better from what I just lost.
There's only two things in the world here as the loyal listeners that we believe got you to where you are today. There's probably many more, but here on this show, since it's my show, I get to decide. And skill or luck, what was what probably would you say the biggest determining factor to where you are today? Skill or luck?
Oh my gosh, I would say skill and support.
Skill and
Luck did
support. Love it.
Yeah, luck didn't have much to do with it, but I guess if you had to use the word luck, I would say I was lucky to have the support I had.
Yeah, see? Yeah. That's very similar to a lot of people who say luck based on their how they were raised, right? The way that they were brought up, they were happened to have great parents. There's a
Right?
lot of us that are met with the opposite side of that adversity. You know, that sometimes we
Right.
didn't have the support we needed and we did. I think a lot of us always had the support we needed. It just may not have been the support we expected. And sometimes
Right.
sometimes that's on us.
Well, hearing you, take it to family real quick instead of insurance, even when you
Love it.
don't have, or you feel like you don't have the proper family support, why not find the support from within? So I teach my children that now because, of course, they're going to grow up to be adults one day and they'll be sitting in therapy when they're 30 years old, explaining what I did wrong when I thought I did everything right. So the whole point is there's nothing that even we can do as parents or that your parents could have done um more right or more wrong. It's how you choose to overcome whatever it is you felt you were wronged by. So it's
Mhm.
the same professionally. If you're not supported enough in your professional career, then find the support from within and rise above that. Use it as an opportunity to prove that you can find better support someplace else. So
I
I'm
love it.
glad you kind of brought family into that because I mean, you just never know how what you do as a parent is going to affect your kids. So what's
It's
more
leadership.
important is,
It's
yeah,
leadership.
what
It's leadership here. It's leadership there. I tell my wife sometimes when our sons do something, I'll tell her in behind closed doors, I say, honey, this is a leadership issue. Like we didn't do what we were supposed to do. He's 15 years old. You know what I mean? He doesn't know
right.
anything. Actually, he looks when they're 15, they're just really tall, but they're really 10. Right? I mean, they really are. There's really tall 10-year-olds. That's mentally, that's how I was. And that's how my sons are. But here, why do I take family into it? So important that you bring that up. You remember the show Cocktails with Tom Cruise? Right? Remember a long time ago, Cocktails. It was Tom Cruise. It was one of his first. Now Dustin. I mean, I can't ask you how old you are. So I mean, you're dating yourself here in the fact that, or not, I should say, in the fact that Cocktails was a great show. It was a movie, and Tom Hanks went to live as a young guy and bartend on a Caribbean island somewhere, and it was his
Got
life
it.
up there. Right? It would just be awesome. I bring family into this because it has to do with that movie, in my opinion. Because if I don't have family, I'm Tom Cruise in the Caribbean, right? I'm not even probably doing insurance, right? I got to do something to support this family. And I just got lucky enough to find the best profession there was, right? But without
Right.
family, I don't know if I'd be here. So that's why I'm just trying to make light of it. But
So are
yeah,
you calling your
cocktail.
family your motivator? Is that what you're saying? Like if you
They
didn't
are my
have
motive.
something behind you?
They are my motivator. They are my reason. They're why I do what I do. They're my legacy. You know what I mean? They're, just everything that I do. So yeah. So
That's
yeah,
great.
totally. So that's why it's easy to bring those two together, besides the fact they're a leadership issue on both of them. So much can be taught on what you're doing. Okay, take us back, college, high school, in 2 or 3 minutes, bring us forward to where you are now. How'd you get there?
Oh my gosh. I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. I followed one of my grandparents into the medical field for a little bit. Started nursing school. I got a scholarship, a really small scholarship for that out of high school. So I just was like, okay, well, the right pieces are falling into the right places. I'll go to nursing school. And I really loved about nursing the adrenaline rush that you could get. What I didn't like, and everybody has something they hate about their job. It doesn't matter how much you love your job, there's something that you don't like.
That's right.
And it was the lull when things weren't exciting because not everything can be like an episode of ER, right? So it was the lull. I constantly needed that adrenaline rush in the medical field. But not only that, I had too soft of a heart. So, and just the same way that, we were just talking about in your failures, I would internalize if somebody passed away, like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And it wasn't always your fault, or there's nothing that you could have always done differently. But I wasn't in that stage in my life. I wasn't mature enough yet. I wasn't old enough yet to where I could progress through, well, how could I learn from this situation? So I gave up on it really quick. Well, not really quick. I was in it for like 2 years, but in the long scheme of things, that's really quick.
Learned a lot of things.
Right. I floundered around a little bit. I was a waitress here at a company called Shorty Smalls. I don't know how expansive that is.
Shorty Smalls. That's an interesting place.
Shorty Smalls, they're famous for their cheese sticks. They're really big cheese sticks. But it's a thing here in Arkansas. And I still have it on my LinkedIn page. I've toyed with, because it was so long ago, I've toyed with taking it off, but I'm still really proud of being a waitress at Shorty Smalls. So I haven't removed it. It's right. So I don't remove it. And I helped them develop a training program for servers and moved into corporate training. And, then I felt like, okay, well, this still feels really kind of high schooly. I need to find an adult gig somewhere. So I moved to a hotel here that was in Arkansas, the Peabody in Little Rock, which is really famous in Memphis. And they're no longer in Little Rock anymore, but I moved there. Somebody took a chance on me and I ended up in their restaurant as well, working on training for servers. So it just kind of moved. Well, then there was an AFLAC convention. And at this point, there's something about your job that you don't like. And I was looking for something more. I still need to be a bigger adult than whatever this is. So there was an AFLAC convention and I met a wonderful lady and she's like, hey, come on over. They're salespeople. We can sell people on anything, right? So come on over, get your life and health license and we'll train you to do this and that. And you can earn infinite amounts of income. Well, that sounds great to a 20-something-year-old. So I sucked at it though. I got my life and health license. It was super fun. And I love a challenge. You asked if I like to win or lose. It's about the challenge for me. The results are what they are. But I love a challenge. And I'd always heard as I was going through this, that it's really hard to pass the licensing exam. And I'm like, all right, we'll see about that. So I studied and I passed the licensing exam. I hated that I couldn't get the score though. That still annoys me to this day about, taking some of these official exams, is that you don't get your score. You just get a pass or fail.
Oh, drives me crazy.
Right. But I've really sucked at door-to-door sales, but I really liked the challenge that was insurance. So I decided to do something and keep the license for a little bit longer. And that just kind of started snowballing everything. And where I got to today as the Personal Lines Academic Director at the National Alliance, it was just one challenge after the next. So, and I'm not talking about challenge in a bad way. It was like, once I got to a certain stage, and the education is the biggest factor in it. Somewhere in there, I went to college and I stayed in college for like 15 years or something like that. My husband will say, I was just constantly like, well, I've got this certificate and I've got this degree. How many more of these can I get? It was more of like, how many squares can I put on my wall?
You love the challenge of just education.
Right. Well, what really challenged me in college is I was working full time. I had a new baby and I started going for my master's. And the who is it? The person that consults with you to tell you what classes you need to take and how many hours.
Guidance counselor.
Right. The guidance counselor. She was like, well, you're working full time and you have a baby. I really don't think you should do more than 2 classes a semester and just do part-time. And I'm like, all right, 4 classes full-time it is. Because you're not going to tell me. So, I don't know if you're involved in the therapy world or not, but there's this diagnosis called oppositional defiance disorder. I'm pretty sure that I probably have it, because when somebody tells me I should do something or I can't do something, I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So I just defy everybody. And that's what I mean by challenges, is I never see a challenge as a negative thing. Sometimes you might get sucked into that for a second. Mm-hmm. But I always eventually change my perspective and go, this is a challenge that I'm going to overcome. And so that's what insurance was for me. But it was a good challenge. It was, I need to get my CISR. I'm going to do it. Everybody says it's hard to pass the test. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to do it in record time. Everybody takes 2 years here at this company. I'm going to do it in 6 months, or, so I would set like this impossible goal for me to just do it better for me. And so I did the CISR thing, and I did the CIC thing, and I got the degree thing. And then I thought, okay, well, now what? I got all this stuff. I can't just be a desk pusher. I can't just sit here. I've got to do something better for myself, not better for others. In terms of, I want to be better than that person or that person. I need to be a better version of myself. And so I just constantly kept setting the bar higher and higher. And this opportunity here at the National Alliance, which I'm totally in love with right now, it was something I saw myself doing when I was closer to retirement. So when it kind of fell into my lap in my mid-30s, I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? I've got to set the bar higher now that I thought this was the culmination of my career. And it still very well may be. This may be my dying career legacy here, to just make the best of this role. So that's how I'm here. That's kind of an abbreviated version of it all. But you just constantly set the bar higher for yourself. And with that, and with the proper support, even if that's support from within, you can achieve so much.
You can. So much to say, and so much to discuss there. So isn't it funny, ironically enough, how education and teaching of insurance happens to be something we all think about? How about you loyal listeners out there, that we all think about as something we're going to do at retirement, right? It's like, well, when I get tired of insurance, I'll just go teach it to people. Now, there's a lot of loyal listeners listening to this right now that are like, no, that's not me. But I think a lot of us do. Thinking of because I go off on rants here, and we'll come back to what you're doing. Some of the things that I've just ran into, I met a gentleman who sells commercial insurance, and he does a really, really good job of it. But now he teaches agents how to get BORs and stuff like this. His name is Charles Speck. An interesting thing about Charles and what he does is he also puts himself on the other side of the table, and he works with the buyers. So he will go to a large organization and say, hey, here's my fee. And what I will do is I will deal with the loss control and the risk management, and I'll deal with the agents when they come in here, because that's what I used to do, and that's what I teach them to do. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I really thought to myself, like with me writing whales, that's kind of what I want to do. Like, that would be really interesting to put yourself on the other side and just have 5 or 10 clients that you would charge a nice little fee to. So that's interesting, these different things that we can do. So anything you want to say to that before I get off this rant? I kind of just took a right turn here.
That's you talked about you getting off on rants and taking right turns. It's funny, the things when you hear something, it triggers something. You said earning a fee for things. So it's easier to charge the fee than to try and compete with the commission sometimes. And what's really funny is I took my daughter to guitar lessons last night. And one of the very first things he said is like, I've been researching that a lot of artists don't, their name is not what their actual name is. But did you know that there is somebody out there that charges anywhere from $15,000 to $75,000 to create these names for people? And I'm like, oh my gosh, why couldn't I have that job? I mean, to just come up with a name for somebody and get paid $75,000 for it, it's kind of the same as what you were just talking, to be able to fix somebody's problem and just charge a fee for it. Like, why couldn't I have thought of that.
Right, right. You bring up a good conversation, and that's happening right now heavily in the financial world that I think is going to seep into the insurance world, and that is commission-based versus fee. I think that there's a lot to be said, not so much for personal lines, but maybe so. There's a lot to be said rather than me charging or getting a commission, me charging a fee. Because a lot of times we charge commissions plus fees for us states that allow to do that. And
Right.
sometimes we're restricted though, right? Like we can't provide other services within that fee because that could be rebating. So
Right,
it's kind of
right.
like, well, you're preventing us from doing what we want. Why don't you allow us to just check a box that says don't charge commission, but allow us to charge the fee because it has to be disclosed. That's another conversation. Let's go back to education. Okay.
Great.
I know we just trigger. I might name this name of this podcast. All you listening already know it's not, or it is, but it's called Squirrels. Hey, squirrel! Let's go over there. And let's talk about that. So
I was thinking triggered.
Okay, squirrels and triggered. Okay, so hey, we talk about the National Alliance. So let's get real here with the National Alliance. Okay, so the National Alliance has been a staple to the education industry or education inside the insurance industry. There's no doubt. I was a CIC at once. I will tell you this right now, the National Alliance, I don't carry it around or print it, but I tell people I'm still a CIC. It's a designation I made. I mean,
it's an honor.
Because I don't pay a fee to somebody, you can't take that away from me. If you went to college, could you imagine all of a sudden you stop giving to your alumni and they start pulling your degrees? No, I'm joking.
Right.
So anyways, I think that the National Alliance has been essential. I think to separate yourself, especially in commercial, that's my genre. That's where I'm coming from, Dustin. So that's where I speak from a lot. To educate yourself in things where you're sitting there going, wow, I know that other agents. I roughly figured out that if you look at all the licensed insurance people in America and you figure out how many are CICs, at the time, this was like 10 years ago, it's like 15 to 20,000, or I'm sorry, 15 to 20% of the agencies out there are CICs. So I would use that to my advantage when I would sell. Like, hey, I just didn't go get an insurance license. I actually went above and beyond. But there's a problem with with that. And the fact that you guys get beat up out there in local, let's talk about that because that's how we know this stuff, that you guys are old school. Like they go to these classes. It's the same old stuff. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that we get taught in there that I think might have been legit back in the 2005s, 2000s. And I'm not saying coverage wise, form wise. I'm just saying the way sometimes you do insurance. And I get those feedback on my podcast. You loyal listeners know who you are. That they call me and they're like, man, I just got done at the CIC course. There's got to be something better out there. And to be honest with you, I don't know if anybody has created that. And so I think the National Alliance has a lot of improvement that they can do, but I think that you guys are doing some of that stuff. And that is the reason why, one of the reasons, Dustin, I wanted you to come on and be able to, instead of people just saying, hey, this or that, like, what are you guys doing? I mean, what are you doing as far as on the personal line? I think that is ginormous. But give us an update. How is National Alliance trying to modernize, just like everybody is in this industry? What do you say about that?
What do I say about that? I would say, wow. Thanks for the feedback.
I'm pretty sure you guys have heard it.
You're right. And one of the things that I really grasped onto when I accepted this position, and one thing that I really loved, because I'm always trying to think about the next step, but sometimes I don't always have the capability to realize what the next step is. Right. One thing that resonated with me when I was talking with the National Alliance about this position is they began calling themselves a 50-year-old startup company. So the National Alliance has been around for 50 years. I mean, this year alone, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Outstanding CSR of the Year Award. So we've been around for a while, but we recognize that we've got some we've got some growth to do in order to keep up with the changes that are going on in the insurance industry. And God knows that this industry is changing every minute. As soon as you publish something, it's already outdated. So we are taking a lot in stride. Now, I want to address the comments that you have or that you just expressed about going to an institute or a CIC or a CISR course and saying, this is the way, this is basic stuff or old stuff or, whatever it was that you just said. There needs to be a foundation. And so we do have those foundational courses where we analyze the ISO policy language because there's a bajillion insurance carriers out there. We can't possibly touch on every carrier's product. And as soon as we do, like I said, it'll be outdated because the carrier will update it, right? So we do stay with the foundation, which is the ISO policy. And the intent is to teach the intricacies of the insurance and the flow of the policy. And, if you make the best of your course, if you're a participant and you want to talk about what your carrier does, you bring it. We'll talk about it because we've written with those carriers too. It's just not in the notebook. Right. So we'll talk about that and we'll talk about the challenges that you face. So that's one of the things is make the best out of your education.
No.
Even if you're in college.
Okay, so please hold your thought there because I want to have this conversation, right? This is going to make everybody better. It's all about making the industry better. And I want you to know that the National Alliance is no different than my agency, different than carriers and everything. We're all having to learn in this world together. So nobody's right or wrong. Right. So it's not so much about the company's forms and what they do. It's about relating. I remember being 29 years old out there on the battlefield being taught by a 67-year-old gentleman who I know hadn't laid an ink to any paper in 10 to 15 years, who's talking about things that sometimes are just not relevant. And that's where I look forward to what we can bring in, because to a 29-year-old, it's kind of like, man, is this guy out there doing what I'm doing? But I'm learning wisdom and knowledge that did come in handy. Do not get me wrong. That wisdom and knowledge came in handy, but it was hard for me to relate.
Okay, bring it. You want to transform the way this stuff is talked about, not necessarily just taught. We're accepting faculty all the time. You want to be a younger faculty member? If you're in your agency and you've got it together and you know your coverage, there's a link on our website at scic.com. You're going to go down and you're going to look at, I think it's job opportunities, and there's a link in there for wanting to become a faculty member. Bring it on. You want to help transform the way this stuff is taught and the dialogue that happens in the classroom and how relatable the class is to agents now. Come be a faculty member with us.
Well, I brought you on, Dustin. You know what I mean? Let's have this conversation. We can't make progress without communication, So I like that. So I cut you off, but I wanted to talk about that because that was important. But go back to what you're doing and all the stuff that you were doing. I apologize.
Sure. No, not at all. I'm glad. It challenged me. Get me to talk about it. So our CIC, our CISR courses, those are our courses that really teach you the meat and bones of how a policy is going to be constructed. The way you look at an ISO policy is going to be the exact same way that you go back and you look at your carrier's policy. It's going to be in the same flow and format. You're going to have your declarations, your agreement, your definitions, the meat and bones of your coverage, liability, physical damage, whatever. And then you're going to get to your policy conditions. So the flow is essentially the same. We're going to teach you how this language can be ambiguous, and you've got to learn how to read it word for word. You've got to learn how to look at the comma and the placement and know that it separates one concept from the next. If it was easy, lawyers wouldn't be litigating this stuff every day in court. So there's those courses. Now, if somebody's looking for something else, you said you used to be a CIC, you didn't maintain paying the dues, if you will. Pay your dues, maintain your CIC. You don't have to keep taking CIC courses. We've got advanced level courses that dive into those topics. We've got the rubles, the William T. Hold seminars. We've got mega courses that are going on right now because of, the COVID stuff. It's really helped transform the way we do things online. And so we've got a year-long mega seminar that goes on where you can go in and select the courses that are interesting to you and the topics that are interesting to you. I was just on the phone with a faculty member yesterday, and he is a seasoned agent. So don't discount a seasoned agent being relevant to a younger agent.
I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying all the time. Fair pushback, fair pushback.
But, I'm mid-career, I'm mid-30s, and I'm talking to this seasoned agent about an advanced topic that he wants to bring to Ruble. And I wasn't feeling it yet. And so I called him and had him say, yeah, I'm like, what's your spin on this? What is your take? Like, why is somebody going to be interested? I mean, he got me so energized. He wants to talk about exactly what you're saying, that we teach ISO, but the carriers do other things. ISO is the rubric for how to build an insurance policy, but the carrier is going to do this, or the carrier is going to do that. The problem is that somebody or an agent is sometimes taking the easy way out. And when a client calls in and they say, I'm about to buy a new vehicle, how long do I have to report it to you? They might default to ISO and say, you've got 14 days to report that vehicle to us. But wait a second, did you pull out that customer's policy and read what newly acquired auto says? Because it might say that you don't have any coverage. You've got to report it to us immediately. Or it might say that you've only got, if it's a replacement auto, you've only got the coverage that the vehicle you replaced it with had. You don't have any automatic coverage. So you've got to pull out the carrier's policy and take a look at it. So he was, from listening to him, I'm like, I didn't pick that up in your slides. I think you and I could be beneficial to each other, and we can make this really resonate and connect with the audience that you're wanting to do that with. But if you sit in one of those classes, loyal listeners, I'll use your language. If you sit in one of those classes and you think that it's not quite connecting, talk to the faculty member about it. Approach them at the break and say, you know what, this is a really interesting topic, but I think if you added this to it, it could really resonate with people. They are so open to it. They want to connect with their audience because insurance is awesome. You and me, we get energized about insurance. Anybody I speak to that is a true insurance nerd, we're constantly wanting excitement to make this even better. So if you're a participant and you see that it feels mundane or something, say something about it. It's your job to yourself to make the most out of your education.
You are a breath of fresh air, and I know that the National Alliance is very, very happy to hear you because you're a very good advocate for the way that you feel. And you started the podcast, and you're only emphasizing what you said earlier is the challenge, right? Maybe National Alliance did take you aside at interviews time and say, hey, we really need to upgrade. Maybe they did tell you they were a 50-year organization that was a startup. And that's good. I like that analogy because when you first said that, I thought so many people, so many organizations in the insurance industry will brag about how long they've been around. That's almost the number one turnoff for especially someone 40, 45 years or younger, because it's kind of like, oh, that great. I see a lot of insurance companies that have only been around for 3 or 4 years. They're doing awesome stuff, not the ones that have been around for 30, 40 years. Microsoft, I had a guy the other day, he told me, he's like, man, I ought to redo your website. I'm proficient in Microsoft. And I'm like, do people still build like websites on Microsoft? And they probably do, because I'm very ignorant in that. So loyal listeners, you're like, of course they do, Jason. I've never heard anybody tell me that they're going to of more of the recent ones. So it has to do with that sometimes. And I'm glad they say that. And I love how they tag it with a startup. What do you think they're meaning exactly in when they said that? Did they decipher that to you, or working there now, what has that meant?
That wasn't deciphered to me, but I'm all about making your own inferences of what that feels like, not just what that means, because words are words, and there's meaning in the words. Literally, you pull out a Webster's dictionary or whatever, but then you have to feel what that message is really trying to say. So I've been at the National Alliance for a year now, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, hey, I'm starting to feel the groove here. What I think is meant by being a 50-year-old startup company is there's a lot of learning going on when you're a startup company. You're challenging yourself and you're trying this and deciding whether or not it worked. And if it doesn't work, great idea, but it's out the window. We're going to try something else. That's a lot of what startup companies can do and will do, is they're constantly testing what feels right, what's connecting. They're doing a lot of research behind the scenes to put out a product and then see how it does. And that's a lot of what we're doing right now. We are working on so many different ways to transform the way we deliver the education and go above and beyond the education. You know, I really love our CICs, CPRM, CRM, all of that stuff. I love the in-class delivery. I'm loving the webinar. I can be a little bit of an introvert, and so I don't I don't have to hobnob as much. But now that we're being forced to do this webinar situation, you suddenly come into the realization of how much value being in person brought to the classroom, the interaction, getting to meet other people, learning what they're doing differently, learning what they're doing wrong, and learning from their experiences is a huge part of the courses that we deliver in person. So I can't wait to get back to those.
I do too.
But
I'm big on
that's
the webinars are tough for me. They really truly are. And it's just me. That takes no discredit away from them, but I love the in class. I'm that way too.
right. Because you get to listen to more than just the instructor, and you get to hear what everybody else's ideas, and so does the instructor. The instructors love it too. The faculty loves it too, because then they hear the feedback that they get from their classroom, and they can transform their delivery next time. It's a fluid situation. So that's what I think about when I hear startup. If you're a company that is bragging on the rights that we've been here for a while, that's great, because it shows you're stable, and it shows you've been here long enough that you've obviously been trying to connect to your audience. If you've been around for 50 years, then you've done something to be around for 50 years, right? That's, that's not something to discount. But then there comes a time where you might need to start looking back at what your origin was and just what your original philosophy was, and get back to that and reinvent it. And that's what's happening right now. There's a lot of fluidity. We're really working on various ways to connect with the insurance industry and our learners.
Well, that is good. That is really good. And I'm not part of your guys' communication that goes out, but I hope that's, if they're wondering, if your marketing department is thinking, how do we resonate with people? I hope they listen to this podcast and they can zilch me out. I'm talking about what you're saying. Like, you have come there, you've listened to who they are, you've now worked there for a year, you're seeing the challenges, you love the challenges, you're accepting the challenges. And it sounds like to me, from someone like yourself who likes a challenge, you're seeing them as well trying to meet the challenge of what the industry is needing, because I believe the delivery of it is different, whether it's the form of delivery. I mean, some people just do like webinars, but not only just the form, but also the age of the delivery, because I tell you what, there's a lot that can be taught back and forth, right? We, as young people, have to have the wisdom of the veterans, just got to. But I think that there's a lot of veterans out there that are like, man, I would love to be able to learn something there. So I think that that's a back and forth there.
That's what maintaining your CIC is about. I'm going to keep harping on you. Let it lapse. You should come back. Anyways, that's a lot of what maintaining your CIC is. When there's a requirement to constantly, take a class to keep that up, you're staying engaged with the organization that you originally invested in. You invested time and money into getting your CIC. If you're disparaged about the way the delivery is happening now, so you're like, that's what continuing to take the classes is. This is the same old class I've been taking. Let's see if I have a suggestion that I can offer that might make this a little bit better. But not only that, when you maintain that CIC, if somebody knows what it takes to maintain your designation, they know that you're constantly trying to improve yourself. You're constantly looking for another education class to maintain that, and not just leaving it as letters that you once invested in.
Once again, this podcast is good for me and loyal listeners, because I love you, Dustin. This wasn't their mindset 10, 15 years ago. But then again, The iPhone wasn't around 15 years ago. So I get it. Let's be nice here for a minute. But this was not their mindset. Their mindset was of the industry in 2010, 2012, 2013. This is what's always worked. We've always been here as a staple. I think also sometimes a lot of organizations have been here first. So they just kind of get to be the known person. But sometimes that squanders other organizations who may see this differently rise up. I know other organizations, educational organizations, that have reached out to some of the associations you guys are tight with, and it's tough to get in, right? It's tough to get in there because of these already things. And sometimes when we're limiting competition, I think sometimes that can sometimes be an issue. I really want you to know this is an awesome podcast, and it has been an awesome podcast because it's really allowed us to dive into the National Alliance. There is no bones about it. I'm going to start retaking mine. Travis and I are trying to sign up now.
I'm gonna look for it.
There's not, well, I don't know if I'll get reinstated as a CIC, but what I do want to do is I want to start taking the education yearly. So I might as well just become a CIC. I get it.
I mean,
but
in the insurance industry, you've got to get CE. Why take a boring little webinar course that takes you 30 minutes to an hour to get through? Or, there's CE courses out there that you can do online that it's really easy to go, oh, I know this stuff. And you click through it as fast as you go. What are you really learning when you're doing that? The only thing you're doing is satisfying a mark in order to renew your license. Do more than that. Be better than that. Challenge yourself to be a better version of yourself than just clicking through something.
And to be of value, not over to your customer, but also a value of your agency. In my agency till today, because I've been in it 21 years and the second has been in there 18 years or whatever, has nothing to do with the amount of years. Has to do with when we're looking for something specifically in a policy, they have me do it. They can do it, but it's going to take them a lot longer. I can tell you, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's in the exclusion form. Oh, yeah, go look in the definition and then revert back to the insuring agreement and see what that says, right? Those are the different things that make it so valuable. And it's so valuable when you're in front of your customer and they're trying to tell you something the other agent said. And you're like, it's easy to listen to someone says, here, this thing that you're paying for, here, right here. It says it right there in item 3B subsets,
right.
Q, but with the exclusion of D over in the additional.
I was on a podcast earlier this month that something you just said kind of triggered with me. One of the biggest joys that I had being in the insurance agency, or being in an insurance agency, and that filters through when you continue to learn and when you continue to even take the same course, if that's all you have available to you, to try to find something new to learn from that old course that you've taken before, is when you pick up the ability to explain coverage to a client in a way that when they have a claim, they're not calling you asking, do I have coverage for this? They're calling me saying, I need to file a claim because you taught me I have coverage for this. When you can explain coverage to your client, the person that really it matters to, it doesn't matter if you can explain coverage to other agents at this point. It matters if you can explain the coverage to your client. And when your client can say, I know I have coverage because you taught me where to find the coverage, or you taught me about my coverage. You didn't just sell me a policy. That is the biggest joy of being an insurance agent ever, because we all know that I'm going to get this wrong. Is it where the rubber meets the road? There we go.
Rubber meets the road. Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say where the brick meets the road, but that doesn't make sense. Where the rubber meets the road is really when a client has a claim. What else are they paying insurance for? So when they know they.
Sorry. I thought you were done. And I apologize, loyal listeners. We have a little bit of a delay here. That's the only reason why we kind of hesitate and talk over each other. But hey, Desmond, would you not agree though that the best way to teach a client about coverage is through storytelling? That's what I tell. It's like the number one way. You should almost have 3 to 5 stories per coverage, right? And
exactly.
And the best way to come up with those is hey, what one do you use? Because it's amazing. I'll be in my office, one of my other locations, and I'll hear an agent talking and explaining a coverage, and I'll hear their story, and I'll be like, that's a good one. I'm going to have to remember that one. You know what I mean? And we just take them from each other. Would you agree or disagree?
I absolutely agree. And that is exactly the unspoken agenda behind our written agenda in our classrooms. You meet with other agents, you get to share war stories. The seasoned agents and the younger agents tell you about those crazy claims that come through. And you get to develop those stories and use them as your own too, until you have enough experience to have your own war stories. So that's not written in the course description of our CIC courses or our CISR courses, but it's there. And that's one thing that being in the classroom, I can't wait to get back to, because that's the unspoken agenda behind our course descriptions.
I agree. Dustin, this has been fantastic. Anything that you'd like to say to the agents as you wrap up here?
I'm just going to reiterate that no matter what you decide to do, always be the best version of yourself. If you're taking a course that you feel is old and outdated, try to learn something new from it, because there's something there. You're just glossing over it. It's kind of like writing a paper and you can't see your own mistakes. Somebody else has to point them out for you. When you've taken something so many times, just refresh your perspective and make your education your own. The feedback that you give to faculty members, no matter where you're getting your education from, is what transforms your education. In college, your instructors are going to sit there and teach out of the book based off of the learning plan that they had, unless you start interacting with them. So you're going to take the same old course over and over again if you're in college. What transforms it is the participant engagement. So really make your education your own by being engaging to that. And one other thing, in terms of the National Alliance and ways that we're trying to connect to our audience, we've got a couple of podcasts too. We've got Nat Alliance Now. I host Awkward Insurance, which has been probably the biggest learning experience of my life, because it's so uncomfortable to really put your voice out there. And so I applaud you for just being so Matthew McConaughey about the whole thing.
Thank you. Big compliment.
It takes a minute to get a stride in using your personality to connect with others. So check out the podcast, and don't just give us feedback on what you think we're doing right. Give us feedback on what you think we could do better, because that's the only way we can know what our audience wants from us. And that just re-resonates, make your education your own. If you just say it's a stale course and move on, then it's never going to be different.
That's right. If you think like Jason Cass, sometimes it's your own loss. Don't be like him all the time, loyal listeners. Leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And I know you're a leader, so you must be a reader. What are you reading?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've got 3 kids, so I'm reading a lot of parenting books right now.
Come on, that's the truth, isn't it?
I have a couple.
Dustin, how old is it?
I have a 3-year-old. He's almost 4. I have a 10-year-old, almost 20. And then I have a 9-year-old who just lives in her own world. So, my favorite book to read is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. And it's really transformed the way I think. It's not about talking, the parent talking at all. It's actually about how to actively listen so that your kids will divulge more information to you. And I think everybody can use a lesson like that. Not even with kids, but you can use the same techniques with your spouse or with coworkers. It's about closing your mouth and actively listening and responding in ways that get them to open up more. So that's one of my favorite ones right now, is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. And then I also have another one that's called How to Stop Losing Your Crap with Your Kids. I don't know if we can say certain words on this podcast.
You can. Yeah.
But that's a good one too, because it just helps you learn how to, again, listen to what they're really trying to say instead of being reactive to their emotions in the
I think
moment.
that was something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning. But when you hear and you read these blogs about parenting or whatever, they say communication is key. But once again, it's real easy to say these phrases, but we don't dive deep enough into them. And when you think of that, you think, okay, well, I need to talk to my child. Well, you do, but as you're saying, the communication part is you listening. My
Right. It's the
son does
biggest factor.
my sons do not divulge as much information to me as they do their mother. And the reason is I think she's a much better listener. I'm not a
Mhm.
good listener on anything. And so I think that that's why I have people surrounding me that are good listeners and be like, Jason, you probably didn't hear what they said, but this is the reason they said it. So it's the way that it is. So I do love it. Last question that I have for you, because these are more personal, getting right into you. Not so much what's in your brain like the first three, but you mentioned you've got a boo. You're probably watching Hulu. You got your kicks on Netflix, or are you spending your time on Amazon Prime? What we like to know as loyal listeners is, like, when it comes to the blah, just trying to settle down for the day, what do you watch? What are you watching out there that would be interesting?
I am currently watching The Crown on
Ooh,
Netflix.
okay. Okay.
So it's just, I don't really like watching stuff that is super realistic, but I like the based on a true story kind of thing where
Mhm,
the
mhm,
producer puts their own spin on it. So,
mhm.
and I've always been fascinated by the royals. I mean, the two princes are my age, so I just grew up with it.
Right.
And yeah, everything that's happening right now has
Yeah.
me going back and watching The Crown and like analyzing it like, ooh, like they got this right. So
Yeah, they did.
that's what he said in that interview. This is how
Yeah.
that. So now it's kind of like watching somebody's therapy notes play out on TV.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me right now. So The Crown is where it's at, and then the one that we watch as a family is
Mhm.
Disney Plus WandaVision. We're all into WandaVision right now.
WandaVision, huh? Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Do
And
you know it? Have you heard?
no one's ever given me a Disney Plus on here, and it's time to make room on there. So that's I might have to throw that out there. So yeah,
Well,
that
are
that's
you a Marvel fan?
no, no.
Oh,
You are
what?
you said it's too realistic. I have to have realistic. I can watch the greatest movie in the world, and as soon as a cartoon character or some Marvel or some creature comes out of the wall, I'm done. I mean, and it's not that
Yeah.
I'm just I can't do it. I can't do it. My buddy Ryan Hanley gets on me. He's a big sci-fi guy, so he wants to talk movies. I'm like, dude, that's not me. I'm a thriller
You know
guy.
what? Life
What?
is
Tell me.
too real. We have a ton of realistic through our own eyes. When I'm sitting down and trying to get away from it, I need something that just
I know there's a lot of
makes
people out
makes
there.
no sense.
Yeah, I get you.
So,
I get you. It makes sense. It does. It makes sense that you're looking for something that makes no sense. Thank you very much for your time. I really do greatly appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me. This has been a really fun conversation. I look forward to you reinstating your CIC.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I will. I will. I will. I will. I have my things. I donate monthly to political action committee. It doesn't have to do with money. It just has to do with the fact that I passed the classes. But so many people in my agency don't have the education I have, and it's because of CIC. So that's why I told them this year was going to be the year when
Yep.
they opened it back up. I'm taking a couple producers. We're flying to wherever we got to go to, and we're going to do it. And I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, I'm going to invest three, four, $5,000 for us all to go to this class. When you're
Give me
making
a
that much,
call.
no, 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 no. But the important part is what you said, Jason. If you're going to spend that much money, give us some feedback. It's very true,
Yeah,
Dustin. I like when people put me in
absolutely.
my spot, because just because I have a microphone doesn't mean that I'm right. Here at Agents Influence, and I'm going to go ahead and close this up if you don't mind. But if at Agents Influence, we believe to tell me your ideas and tell me your thoughts, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. At never any point in there did I say, loyal listeners, that I have to agree. Now, I'm also going to let you know, as you know of me doing 500 and some of these, I'm going to let people know where I do hear the feedback out there or what my own thoughts are. But it's important that we have these conversations like Dustin and I just did. She defended the National Alliance so well, and not because she works there, but because she cares about you as an independent agent, and she sees the successes of the National Alliance, and she now sees the startup mentality of transformation, and she's willing to say, I'm going to be a part of this, and I'm going to help lead it in any way that they can. And loyal listeners, you all know that we wish we had people like that in our agencies, and we wish that we had more people like that in our carriers. And so kudos to you, National Alliance, for making that hire. And Dustin, you're fantastic for this industry. I can't wait to see you one day. And we used to shake hands. Maybe we'll be doing elbows, but I promise if you see me, I'll shake your hand. So you've been fantastic to have in our industry. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jason.
You know, she said, loyal listeners, the most important thing you should take away from this. And be sure you're trying to make the best version of yourself, right? My buddy Britt Kelly said this one time, and it really took me back. It really took me back. It made me think deep about something that I really have never thought about. And he said to me, he said, Jason, the reason why you want to live your best life, and he says, just because you're going to live a good life, but think about this. What if at the end of your life, you meet the best version of you? This person who you, at the end of your life, whenever that happens, you meet this person that made all the right decisions, invested in themselves when they should have, helped other people like this world requires, put their best foot forward. They made an honest effort to make the right decision every time. Whether they were perfect or not is not the answer, but the best version of yourself, is that you? Do you want to see that person and it be a mirror? Or do you want to see that person and be like, oh man? The thing is that thinking that at the age of 85, 90, or 120, when that time comes, is really too late. And a lot of you guys are 25, 30, 35, 40, 42. We have so much time to change that version of who we are. We know that I do as a 42-year-old, that the version of myself today is not the version of who we are as 20. To hold somebody responsible for who they were as a 20-year-old is not right. And I think as a 60-year-old and 80-year-old, you should hold yourself responsible for the things that you've become in this world. The best version of yourself. Education is part of that. This has been Jason Cass with Agents Influence Podcast. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. And I do what I do because I do it for you. This is Cass, and she's Bryant, and we're out.